So you've just purchased an R-Pod and you've arrived at a campsite. So what's next? You know, in this R-Pod 101 video, I'm going to share with you my basic step-by-step process for setting up a campsite. Hey everybody, this is John Marucci. Thanks for joining us on the On the Road YouTube channel. You know, this channel is all about helping you get the most out of your R-Pod experience. Before we get going, welcome to the channel. If you're new here, remember to hit subscribe and hit the bell icon also to be notified by email when a new video is published. If you want to dive deeper, we have Instagram and Twitter where we put more content and photos at John Marucci. So let's jump in. So what are some of the steps that we take to do a basic lot setup? The context here is a local state park we went to. Okay, it's an open lot kind of setup where there's no berms, it's not very well defined, and there's only 30 amp electric. So there's no sewer and there's no city water to deal with. So let's look at the step-by-step process. The first thing I do is when I come to a campsite is I keep the travel trailer and the tow vehicle in front of the campsite and I walk around and scope the lot out. So I scope the campsite out to make sure that there's no hazards, low-hanging branches. I want to know where the electrical pedestal is to plug into, see if there's any big dips or rocks or anything in the way, to kind of scope it out to get a feel for where I want to actually park the R-Pod. All right, then the next step is to actually pre-mark it. And this is especially helpful for those of you who are doing this solo, to have a couple orange cones or maybe a couple of your orange Lynx levelers to go out once you scope the campsite, is to put those two down for the back corners of where you want to end up when you back your R-Pod into the site. So that's pretty helpful. If you have someone with you, I really recommend you using walkie-talkies that the person's with you can help guide you in and talk, you know, tell you to go a little bit more to the passenger side, a little bit more to the driver's side, come back so many feet, etc., and work as a team to do that. But if you're on your own, you can use those cones or Lynx levelers as a guide. Really helpful to do that. Okay, so we're pre-mark. That's the next thing, is to pre-mark your campsite. And then the next step is to back in. So remember that most people take several attempts to back in. So don't feel like you got to do it the first time. You know, most of us still have issues with backing into a campsite the first time. I know I do, and I like to get it right, so I usually take a couple times to get the angle of the pod right and everything. So don't feel like you're under pressure to have to do it right the first time. You'll find out that pretty quickly at a campsite. A lot of people take several attempts to get it right. Okay, so once you have the R-Pod back where you want it, then you want to level it side to side. Now this is important, and I just use, by the way, an 18-inch level I got from like Home Depot or somewhere. I lay it across the floor of the R-Pod and make sure that that bubble ends up in the middle from side to side. So if it's off one way or another, I've got to put levelers under there or whatnot and to raise one side. Now in this case, at the state park we went to, we didn't have to do that. It was pretty fortunate. But if you do have to do that, I have another video in the 101 playlist here called Tough Lot Setup that shows you more about that. So we did well. We didn't have to level side to side, and we didn't have to use any levelers. But if you do have to, use levelers if necessary, right? So the next step is to chalk the wheels. Now this is really important for safety's sake that you do that well. If you are using levelers, make sure you turn those chalks upside down and use a rubber mallet to tap them in really good. And if you don't have levelers on one or both sides, you know, lay them flat and tap them in really good so that the unit is not going to move on you. Actually, very vital safety tip, safety first always. So once you have it chalked and level side to side, you're going to want to start unhooking the front of the travel trailer by the tow vehicle. Now there's a couple things you have to do. You unplug the 7-pin connector that's connected to the tow vehicle. You want to unhook your weight distribution hitch if you have one, and any of the stabilizer bars. Usually you have to raise it up a little bit to take the pressure off the stabilizer bars, take the bars off or chains off or whatnot, and then lower it back down and disconnect those. And finally, take your safety chains off as well. And then you're going to want to pull the tow vehicle away, right, once you unhook that. And then the next step is to adjust the R-Pod front to back level. So again, I just go in and I turn the leveler side the other direction, front to back, and try to get that bubble in the middle by raising or lowering the front tongue using the jack or, you know, hand cranking, one or the other, and until I get it level. So at this point, if everything works well, I have an R-Pod that's sitting level on the site, side to side and front to back, and we're good to go. So the next step for me is to plug the power in. Now just a quick point of this, you may want to check that first even to make sure that you have power on the site. Generally, I haven't run into an issue yet camping where I don't have power. So the next step for me is to plug the power. I have a surge protector and I plug that in first. and then I run the power cord to the R-Pod and plug it in. I'll then just jump inside and change the refrigerator from battery to shore power and be good to go. The unit's ready to go. It has power. And then the next thing I'll do is lock things up. So I have a bike lock that I put around the surge protector at the pedestal, electrical pedestal. Pretty easy to do, not very expensive, good idea. And then I also have locks for the coupler and the coupler clamp. So I have a coupler lock, and then I put the clamp down on the coupler, the travel trailer there, and put a padlock on the clamp. Not a perfect deterrent, but it is a deterrent. And the final step really is to lower the stabilizer jacks. I also have a drill, by the way. It makes it real easy if you have a drill in a socket that you can put and just drill down the stabilizer jacks instead of hand cranking them, and then stabilize the travel trailer well so it doesn't wiggle around when you're inside of it. So those are the main steps. Now obviously there's other steps you do afterward. If you have a unit with a slide, you want to obviously put the slide out. If you have an awning, you may want to extend the awning, put a outdoor rug out there, maybe have an outdoor tent you want to put up, other things. But those are the main steps that I go through when I'm doing a simple lot setup. And hopefully those are helpful. Any of the products, by the way, that you saw in this video or we mentioned are going to be in the description below with links. And by the way, I invite you to share your comments, because your comments may really help someone else. If you have other tips or tricks or other steps that you think need to be in the process, make sure you put them in the comments below. They may really help someone watching. So anyway, this is John Marucci. We love making these videos for you. Thanks for watching again, and so long for now.